We could be just hours away from Congress sending a massive relief bill to the president's desk. That $1.9 trillion bill would send relief to Americans in the form of direct payments. It also includes money for vaccines, small businesses, and getting students back to school. It has been a priority for President Biden since the day he took office and has turned into one of the largest anti-poverty measures in decades. Earlier today, I spoke with Jared Bernstein, a member of the Council of Economic Advisors, about why his team at the White House believes this funding is more important now than ever. Jared Bernstein with the White House, we appreciate your time as an economist right now with trillions of dollars on the line. I know your time is precious, so thank you for sharing some of it with us.
My pleasure.
I think the big question on a lot of people's minds right now is how soon will they start to see some of this relief?
As soon as the American Rescue Plan is passed by the Congress, our priority is to get relief out to the American people as quickly, as accurately, as efficiently as possible. The Treasury and the IRS, the folks that send these checks out, they've been through this drill before. They're ready to start getting checks out to literally over 100 million people starting very shortly, days after signing.
Walk us through who will benefit from this relief package initially in the coming days.
The first batch of payments go to all the taxpayers who provided some direct deposit information that the relevant agencies have on hand versus their 2019 or 2020 returns. In terms of unemployment insurance benefits, the enhancement of $300 per week, that's ongoing, but unless this bill passes, it expires in a matter of days, and 11 million people would face the cost of that expiration. The checks and the unemployment coverage, the child tax credit enhancement, a set of policies that are targeted at folks at the bottom of the income scale, they get out to people who really need the help. So here's a new number that came out yesterday from a group called the Tax Policy Center. The increase in after-tax income to folks at the bottom of the scale for families with children is 35%. We're talking about numerous thousands of dollars going to families who would otherwise be poor, families raising kids. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that, again, outside evaluation has found that the American Rescue Plan cuts child poverty by half in this country in 2021.
What is the logistical plan to distribute this money and make sure that those people that you're talking about get the money they need and it goes to the right places and there's not ambiguity in who is getting relief and who is not?
The programs are targeted at people who need it. So families that lack nutritional support will get expanded benefits in that regard, from expansions to the SNAP program. Families that face unemployment insurance expiration, that kicks in right away as soon as the bill gets signed.
There are a lot of people who cannot pay their bills, who cannot buy food because they do not have jobs. So how will this relief plan address small businesses across the country, other businesses who have struggled through the pandemic, to make sure that those jobs come back? The latest numbers, 18 million remain unemployed right now across the U.S.
Yeah, so that's the number of unemployment insurance claims, and that is a hugely elevated number, and it's been so ever since the pandemic hit. By, I believe it is March 14th, so in a matter of just a few days, absent the signing of the American Rescue Plan, enhanced benefits for those folks, that is the $300 per week extra that they get on their unemployment insurance, that's so crucial for what you're describing, that gets extended through September as soon as this is signed.
What do you say to people who say this is just too much money right now, certainly given the fact that we're starting to see some recovery, some relief in terms of the pandemic, some relief in terms of the economy, that $1.9 trillion is just too much? Why not wait and see how things correct themselves?
Because wait and see has been the enemy of the president's goals when it comes to putting this crisis behind us once and for all. Wait and see is what causes these kinds of economic air pockets and healthcare air pockets that allow the virus to regain control and have another one of those upsurges that we've seen continuously throughout the crisis.
And this bill could go to President Biden's desk without a single Republican vote. Not one Republican in the Senate voted in favor of this relief bill, nor the procedural measure in the House today. Top Republican Mitch McConnell says it simply is too big and not well targeted, saying the president missed an opportunity to compromise with the other side of the aisle.
His whole conference put lockstep party unity ahead of substance and ahead of bipartisan compromise.
House Democrats say they are hopeful that the bill gets some Republican votes, but that is unlikely. The president argues that a majority of Americans are in favor of relief.